Marcus sat frozen in his taxi, staring at the leather briefcase through his rearview mirror. His hands still gripped the steering wheel even though the engine had been off for 20 minutes. Inside that briefcase was 1 million naira. Enough money to save his wife's life. Enough money to change everything. But it wasn't his. The street was quiet now. The rain had stopped, and Lagos seemed to hold its breath in the darkness. Marcus had driven taxis for 11 years, watching people climb in and out of his back seat, leaving behind nothing but the smell of expensive perfume or cheap beer. But tonight was different. Tonight, someone had left behind something that could either destroy his family or save them. He reached back slowly and pulled the briefcase onto his lap. It was heavy, real leather, the kind that cost more than 3 months of his taxi earnings. Gold initials near the handle read DA. Marcus knew those initials. Everyone in Lagos knew them. Daniel Akinola. Oil tycoon. Real estate mogul. The man owned half of Victoria Island and had politicians on speed dial. His face was on billboards across the city. His name was whispered in traffic jams, in markets, in church halls. And he had just left his briefcase in Marcus's beaten-down Honda. Marcus's fingers trembled as he opened the case. Inside were documents with signatures he couldn't read, property deeds for houses in Ikoyi and Banana Island, a checkbook from Zenith Bank printed in silver, and stacks of cash. Bundles of 1,000 naira notes wrapped with rubber bands. He counted quietly. 20 stacks. 50 notes each. 1 million naira. His phone buzzed, making him jump. His wife's name appeared on the screen, Grace. He stared at it, his thumb hovering over the answer button. She had called 3 times already. Marcus knew what she wanted to know. When was he coming home? Did he make enough money today for her hospital appointment? The appointment they couldn't afford. The surgery that would cost 150,000 naira by Friday. The surgery that stood between Grace and the lump growing in her breast. Friday was 2 days away. Marcus looked back at the briefcase. 1 stack from this case could solve everything. 2 stacks could change everything. His phone rang again. This time he answered. Marcus, where are you? Grace's voice was tired, strained. She had been tired for 2 years now, ever since the lump appeared. Still working, Marcus said quietly. I had a long-distance passenger. Silence on the other end. Then Grace spoke again, her voice smaller now. The hospital called again. They said if we don't bring the money by Friday, they'll cancel everything. Marcus closed his eyes. His grip tightened on the briefcase. I'll find it, he whispered. How? Grace's voice cracked. How, Marcus? We've borrowed from everyone. Your brother won't even answer your calls anymore. My mother thinks I married a useless man. I said I'll find it. More silence. Then Grace's voice came again, softer, more painful. Our daughter asked me today why we don't eat chicken anymore. She's 7 years old, Marcus. She shouldn't have to notice these things. The line went dead. Marcus sat there in the darkness, staring at 1 million naira that didn't belong to him. In his mind, he could see Grace lying in their one-room apartment in Ajigunal, worried and sick. He could see their daughter Joy, sleeping on a thin mat because they couldn't afford a proper bed. 1 stack. Just 1 stack of 50,000 naira. A man like Daniel Akinola wouldn't even notice it missing. Men like him lost more money in their couch cushions than Marcus made in a year. Marcus started the engine. But which direction would he drive? Marcus drove slowly through the empty streets of Victoria Island, past tall gates and sleeping security guards, past luxury cars parked in wide driveways, past a world he would never belong to. His mind was at war with itself. One voice told him to take the money and run. The other voice sounded like his father. When Marcus reached his neighborhood in Ajigunal, everything changed. The streets became narrower and darker. The smell of open gutters mixed with frying akara from a late-night food cellar. Children slept on mats outside because the heat inside their rooms was unbearable. Marcus parked in front of his building. It was a 3-story structure with peeling paint and rusty balconies that looked ready to fall. He lived on the 2nd floor in one room with a kitchen in the corner and a bathroom shared with 3 other families. He took the briefcase and walked upstairs, his legs heavy with each step. When he opened the door, Grace was still awake. She sat on the edge of their mattress, which lay directly on the floor. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting weak yellow light across the room. Their daughter Joy slept in the corner on a small mat, covered with a wrapper. Grace looked up when Marcus entered. Her eyes were red from crying. You're finally back, she said quietly. Yes. Then Grace saw the briefcase. Her whole expression changed. Her eyes went wide and she stood up slowly. What is that? She asked, pointing at the case. Marcus set it down on the floor. A passenger left it in the taxi. Grace walked closer, staring at the briefcase like it was a snake. What kind of passenger? A rich one. Did you open it? Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Grace's breathing quickened. What's inside? Documents. Money. How much money? Marcus looked at his wife. A lot. Grace knelt down and opened the briefcase herself. When she saw the cash, her hand flew to her mouth. She pulled out the stacks with shaking fingers, counting them quickly. When she finished, she looked up at Marcus with wide, disbelieving eyes. 1 million naira, she whispered. Yes. Grace stood up, holding one stack in her hands. Her eyes were bright now, almost wild. Marcus, do you know what this means? Do you know what we could do with this? It's not ours, Marcus said quietly. Grace stared at him like he had just slapped her. What? It belongs to someone. I have to return it. Grace's face changed from shock to anger in seconds. Return it? Marcus, are you mad? It's not ours, he repeated. So what? Grace snapped, her voice rising. This man left it in your taxi. He was careless. That's his problem, not yours. Grace. No. She cut him off, stepping closer. No, Marcus. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of praying and fasting and believing God will provide. I'm tired of watching our daughter go to bed hungry. I'm tired of this lump in my chest growing bigger while we wait for a miracle that never comes. Her voice broke and tears started rolling down her face. This is the miracle, Marcus, she said, holding up the stack of money. This is God answering our prayers. And you want to give it back. Marcus looked at his wife. He saw the exhaustion carved into her face, the desperation burning in her eyes. She looked older than her 32 years. The sickness and poverty had aged her. What if it was our money? Marcus asked quietly. What if I left something in someone's car and they kept it? How would you feel? I would feel stupid for being careless, Grace shot back. Grace. She grabbed his arm, her fingers digging into his skin. Marcus, listen to me. We can take just enough for my surgery. Just 150,000 naira. We return the rest. He won't even notice it's missing. Marcus pulled his arm away gently. And what do we tell Joy when she grows up? That we stole? We wouldn't be stealing, Grace said firmly. We'd be surviving. There's a difference. Grace's eyes filled with fresh tears. So you're choosing this stranger over your own family? I'm choosing to do the right thing. Grace laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. The right thing? The right thing doesn't pay hospital bills, Marcus. The right thing doesn't put food on our table. The right thing doesn't send our daughter to school. She picked up the briefcase and held it out to him, her hands shaking. If you return this money, she said, her voice cold and hard, I swear to God I will never forgive you. The room went silent. Even the sounds from outside seemed to fade away. Marcus looked at his wife, at the woman he had married 9 years ago when they were both young and believed love was enough. At the woman who had stood by him through every failure, every disappointment, every broken promise. I have to return it, he said quietly. Grace's face crumpled. She threw the briefcase at his feet and turned away. Then go, she whispered. Go and return it. And when you come back empty-handed, don't expect me to be here. What choice would Marcus make? Marcus stood in the room for a long time, staring at the briefcase on the floor. Grace lay on the mattress with her back to him, her shoulders shaking as she cried silently. Joy stirred in her sleep but didn't wake up. Marcus's hands trembled as he picked up the briefcase. He looked at Grace one more time, hoping she would turn around, hoping she would understand. But she didn't move. He walked out of the room and closed the door softly behind him. Marcus drove to a quiet spot near the lagoon and parked. He sat in the darkness, watching the water shimmer under the moonlight. The city was silent at this hour, and for the first time all night, Marcus could hear himself think. He thought about Grace's words. About Joy's innocent question about chicken. About the landlord's warnings and the hospital's deadline. He thought about opening the briefcase one more time and taking just enough to survive. But then he remembered his father. His father had been a carpenter, a quiet man who built furniture for people in their neighborhood. He died when Marcus was 15 years old. But before he died, he had told Marcus something important. A man's wealth is not in his pocket, his father had said, his voice weak but firm. It's in his name. If people can't trust your name, you have nothing. Marcus had carried those words for 20 years. They had guided him through every difficult decision, every temptation, every moment when taking the easy road seemed better than doing the right thing. He started the engine and drove toward Victoria Island. The Akinola estate sat behind 12-foot walls topped with electric wire. 2 security guards stood at the gate, both wearing crisp black uniforms and earpieces like they were protecting the president himself. Marcus pulled up slowly. One of the guards approached, already frowning. "What'n you want?" the guard asked in pidgin, his hand resting on the baton at his hip. "I need to see Mr. Akinola," Marcus said. The guard laughed. "You and 500 other people. Come it for here before I call police." "I have something that belongs to him," Marcus said quickly. "If na business proposal, bring am during office hours. This na person house you know fit just." Marcus held up the briefcase through the window. The guard's expression changed instantly. His eyes went wide and he stepped back. He spoke quickly into his radio, his voice urgent. 30 seconds later, the gates slid open with a low hum. They searched Marcus twice, patting him down like a criminal. They checked his ID and made him wait in a small security room with concrete walls and a single plastic chair. The room smelled like cigarettes and floor polish. 30 minutes passed. Then 45. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Grace. He pulled out the phone and saw her text message, "If you do this, we're finished." Marcus put the phone away without responding. Finally, a woman appeared in the doorway. She was middle-aged and elegant, wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Marcus's entire taxi. Her name tag read, Mrs. Okonkwo, Chief of Staff. "You're the taxi driver?" she asked, her tone sharp and clipped. "Yes, ma." She looked him up and down, her eyes lingering on his worn shirt, his scuffed shoes, the faded jeans with a small tear near the knee. "How did you get this briefcase?" she asked. "A passenger left it in my taxi." "What passenger?" "I don't know his name, but the initials on the briefcase match Mr. Akinola's." Mrs. Okonkwo's eyes narrowed. "Did you open it?" Marcus hesitated. "Yes, ma." "And?" "Everything is inside. I didn't take anything." Mrs. Okonkwo studied him for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she picked up a phone on the wall and spoke quietly to someone Marcus couldn't see. When she hung up, she turned back to Marcus. "Come with me," she said. She led him through the compound, and Marcus felt like he had entered a different world. There were fountains that looked like art installations, gardens with flowers he couldn't name, and cars parked in a circular driveway that were each worth more than Marcus would earn in 20 lifetimes. They entered the main house and Marcus had never seen anything like it. The floors were pure marble. The ceiling was impossibly high, decorated with chandeliers that looked like frozen waterfalls. Paintings hung on the walls, and though Marcus didn't know art, he knew expensive when he saw it. Mrs. Okonkwo stopped in front of a large wooden door. "Wait here," she said. She knocked once, then entered, closing the door behind her. Marcus stood in the hallway, still holding the briefcase. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. He felt small and out of place like a stain on a white shirt. He heard voices inside the room. One was Mrs. Okonkwo's. The other was deeper, male, and sounded irritated. The door opened. Mrs. Okonkwo stepped out, her expression still unreadable. "He'll see you now," she said. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped inside. The office was enormous. One entire wall was glass, overlooking the estate and the glittering lights of Lagos beyond. A massive desk sat in the center, made of dark wood that gleamed under soft lighting. Behind the desk sat Daniel Akinola. He was older than Marcus expected, maybe late 50s or early 60s. His hair was gray at the temples and his face was lined but strong. He wore a white kaftan embroidered with gold thread. When he looked up at Marcus, his eyes were sharp and calculating. "You're the driver?" Daniel asked. His voice was deep and controlled. "Yes, sir." "And you have my briefcase?" "Yes, sir." Daniel gestured to Mrs. Okonkwo, who took the briefcase from Marcus's hands and placed it on the desk. Daniel opened it slowly. He checked the documents, flipped through the contracts, looked at the checkbook. Then he pulled out the cash and counted it carefully. Everything was there. He closed the briefcase and looked at Marcus again. The silence stretched long and uncomfortable. "Do you know what's inside this?" Daniel asked. "Yes, sir." "And you didn't take anything?" Marcus hesitated. "No, sir." "Nothing at all? Not even one note?" "No, sir." Daniel leaned back in his chair and studied Marcus for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Not a polite laugh, but a real one, deep and almost bitter. "You're either the most honest man in Lagos," Daniel said, "or the biggest fool." What would Daniel do next? Marcus didn't know what to say. He stood there silently, his heart pounding, wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. Daniel stood up and walked around the desk. He stopped a few feet from Marcus, studying him like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "What's your name?" Daniel asked. "Marcus Obi, sir." "How long have you been driving taxis?" 11 years, sir." "Married?" "Yes, sir." "I have a wife and a daughter." Daniel nodded slowly. "And your wife knows you're here? Returning this money?" Marcus's throat tightened. "Yes, sir." "What did she say?" Marcus looked down at his worn shoes. He didn't want to answer, but something in Daniel's eyes told him he couldn't lie. "She told me not to come," Marcus said quietly. Daniel's expression didn't change. "But you came anyway." "Yes, sir." "Why?" "Because it's not mine." Daniel walked to the large glass window and looked out at the city lights. For a long moment he said nothing. The silence in the room was heavy, almost unbearable. Then Daniel spoke, his voice quiet and distant. "My father was a taxi driver." Marcus blinked. He wasn't sure he had heard correctly. Daniel turned back to face him. "In 1983 my father drove a taxi in Surulere. We lived in one room. My mother sold vegetables in the market. I was the oldest of 6 children." He paused, his eyes distant, remembering. "One day my father picked up a man. A Lebanese businessman. When they reached the destination, the man got out and left a bag in the back seat." Marcus listened, barely breathing. "My father opened the bag," Daniel continued. "Inside was $20,000 in cash." Marcus's breath caught in his throat. "My father brought the money home," Daniel said. "He showed it to my mother. She cried. She begged him to keep it. Just enough to move us out of that terrible room. Enough to send me and my brothers to school. She said God had sent the money to us, that it was a blessing." Daniel's voice grew quieter, more emotional. "But my father refused. He said it wasn't ours. He said taking it would make us thieves, and thieves never prosper. My mother was furious. She didn't speak to him for 3 days." Marcus stood frozen, hanging on every word. "The next morning," Daniel continued, "my father returned the bag to the Lebanese man. The man was shocked. He asked my father why he didn't keep it. My father said, 'Because it would teach my children that stealing is acceptable when you're desperate.'" Daniel looked directly at Marcus, his eyes intense. "The Lebanese man owned an oil company. He was so impressed by my father's honesty that he offered him a job. A real job. Not much, but it was stable and legal. My father accepted." Daniel walked back to his desk and sat down. 5 years later, that same man helped me get a scholarship to study business in London. When I came back to Nigeria, he introduced me to people. Important people. People who gave me opportunities. People who trusted me because they trusted my father." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Everything I have," Daniel said slowly, "started because my father returned a bag he didn't have to return." The room fell silent. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. His eyes burned with tears he refused to let fall. Daniel pulled out a checkbook and began writing. He didn't look up as he spoke. "Your wife was right to be angry with you. You came here with 1 million naira that could have solved all your problems. And you're leaving with nothing." He tore off the check and held it out. Marcus took it slowly. His hands started shaking when he saw the amount. 500,000 naira. "Sir, this is too much. I can't." "You can," Daniel said firmly. "And you will. That's not charity. That's payment. You returned something that was mine when no one was watching. That kind of character is rare." Marcus's vision blurred. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. "Thank you, sir," he whispered. "Thank you so much." Daniel raised his hand. "I'm not finished." He pressed a button on his desk. Mrs. Okonkwo entered immediately. "I want you to take Mr. Obi's information," Daniel said. "Tomorrow morning have HR draft an employment contract. He'll be joining us as a trainee site supervisor in the construction division. Salary starts at 250,000 naira per month." Marcus's legs nearly gave out. He grabbed the edge of the desk to steady himself. "Sir, I don't understand." "You will," Daniel said. "I'm not giving you this job because I'm kind, Marcus. I'm giving it to you because I see something in you that I haven't seen in 20 years. My father had it. And it's the only thing worth more than all the money in that briefcase." He stood and extended his hand. "Report Monday morning. 7 o'clock sharp. Don't be late." Marcus shook his hand, his entire body trembling. "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." As Marcus turned to leave, Daniel called after him. "Marcus." He stopped and turned back. "One more thing." "Yes, sir?" "Go home to your wife. Give her that check. Tell her she was right to be angry. Tell her you understand why she wanted you to keep the money. Daniel paused. And then tell her this. The reason you didn't keep it wasn't because you're foolish. It's because you're building something more valuable than money. You're building a name your daughter can be proud of. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. He walked out of the office, through the mansion, past the fountains and gates, and back to his taxi. He sat in the driver's seat and looked at the check in his hand. Then he started the engine and drove home, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Would Grace forgive him? When Marcus opened the door to their room, Grace was still awake. She sat in the same position, her back against the wall, her arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up when he entered, her face hard and cold. You actually did it, she said bitterly. You actually gave it back. Marcus nodded. He couldn't find words yet. Grace laughed, but there was no joy in it. So now what? We wait for another miracle? Marcus walked over and knelt down in front of her. He pulled out the check and placed it gently in her hands. Grace looked down. Her eyes went wide and her mouth opened in shock. What is this? She whispered. Payment, Marcus said quietly. For returning the briefcase. Grace stared at the check, her hands beginning to shake. 500,000 naira. Yes. Tears started rolling down her face. She looked at Marcus, then at the check, then back at Marcus again. I don't understand. And there's more, Marcus continued, his voice steady now. I have a job. A real job with Ekinola Holdings. Starting Monday. 250,000 naira per month. Grace covered her mouth with both hands. Her whole body began to tremble. How is this possible? Marcus took her hands in his. The man whose briefcase I returned, his father was also a taxi driver. And his father also found money that didn't belong to him. And his father also returned it. And that decision changed everything. Grace's tears fell faster now, streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Marcus pulled her into his arms and held her tightly. You weren't wrong to want to survive, he said softly. You were just scared. And I understand. They sat there together on the floor of their one-room apartment, holding each other and crying. In the corner, Joy slept peacefully, unaware that her family's life had just changed forever. 6 months passed like a dream. Marcus stood on a construction site in Lekki, wearing a hard hat and a vest with the Ekinola Holdings logo printed on the back. He was no longer a taxi driver. He was a trainee supervisor, learning how buildings rose from the ground. He worked 12-hour days. He studied at night after Joy went to bed. He asked questions until his supervisors got tired of answering. But he learned. Every day he learned something new. One afternoon, Daniel visited the site unannounced. He found Marcus reviewing blueprints with the site engineer, pointing out a measurement that didn't match the specifications. You're right, the engineer admitted, surprised. Good catch. Daniel smiled but said nothing. He watched Marcus for a few more minutes, then called him into the site office. You're doing well, Daniel said when they were alone. Thank you, sir. I'm trying. Daniel nodded. I want to tell you something, Marcus. Something I didn't tell you that night. Yes, sir? The Lebanese man who gave my father a job, his name was Mr. Khalil. He died 10 years ago. But before he died, he called me to his bedside. Daniel paused, looking out the window. He told me that the day my father returned his money was the day he learned something important. What did he learn, sir? That integrity can't be bought. It can only be recognized. And when you recognize it, you invest in it. Daniel turned back to Marcus. That's what I'm doing with you, Marcus. I'm investing in your integrity. Because men like you are rare. And rare things are valuable. Marcus's throat tightened with emotion. I won't let you down, sir. I know you won't. 3 years passed. Marcus stood in a new house in a quiet part of Aja. It had 3 bedrooms, a small yard, and a gate that locked. It wasn't a mansion, but it was his. Grace stood beside him, healthy now. The surgery was long behind her, and the doctors had given her a clean bill of health. She smiled as she watched Joy, now 10 years old, running through the house excitedly, choosing which room would be hers. That evening, after Joy went to bed, Marcus and Grace sat on their small balcony, looking out at their neighborhood. Do you ever think about that night? Grace asked softly. The night you found the briefcase? Marcus nodded. Every day. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd kept the money? Marcus looked at her. Yes, we would have survived. Maybe for a year, maybe 2. But eventually the money would have run out and we'd be right back where we started. He paused. But because I returned it, we didn't just survive. We changed. Everything changed. Grace rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "I'm proud of the man you are." Inside the house, Joy slept peacefully in her own bed, in her own room, in a house her father had earned not by taking what didn't belong to him, but by giving back what did. And somewhere across the city, in a mansion behind 12-foot walls, Daniel Akinola sat in his study thinking about his father, about Mr. Khalil, about Marcus, and about the invisible thread that connects one generation's integrity to the next generation's opportunity. What would Marcus teach his daughter about that night? Inside the house, Joy slept peacefully in her own bed, in her own room, in a house her father had earned not by taking what didn't belong to him, but by giving back what did. And somewhere across the city, in a mansion behind 12-foot walls, Daniel Akinola sat in his study. He was thinking about his father, about Mr. Khalil, about Marcus, and about the invisible thread that connects one generation's integrity to the next generation's opportunity. The briefcase was never the test. The test was what you did when no one would ever know. And the reward was not what you gained. It was who you became. Marcus didn't just return a briefcase that night. He returned to the man his father raised him to be. And in doing so, he gave his daughter something no amount of stolen money could ever buy. A father whose name means something. Because here's what most people don't understand about wealth. It's not just what you accumulate. It's what you refuse to compromise to get it. The real question isn't whether Marcus made the right choice. The real question is this. What would you have done if you were sitting in that taxi with your wife's surgery on the line, your daughter going hungry, your landlord at your door, and 1 million naira sitting in your hands with no witnesses, no cameras, no consequences? Would you have the strength to choose your integrity over your survival? That question followed Marcus for years, but not in the way people might think. It didn't haunt him with regret. It followed him with gratitude. Because every morning when he woke up in his house in Aja, every time he saw Grace healthy and smiling, every time Joy ran through their home laughing without worry, Marcus remembered that night. He remembered the choice that changed everything. The choice that seemed impossible in the moment but became the foundation of everything good that followed. Marcus learned something that night that many people never learn in their entire lives. Your character is built in the moments when no one is watching. Not when people are praising you. Not when rewards are guaranteed. But in the dark, alone, when taking the wrong path would be easy and no one would ever know. That's when character is truly tested. That's when you discover who you really are. And Marcus discovered that he was his father's son. A man who valued his name more than his comfort. A man who would rather suffer with integrity than prosper with shame. That character became the only inheritance that truly lasts. It became the foundation that lifted his family out of poverty. The bridge that connected his struggle to his daughter's opportunity. The seed that would grow into a legacy spanning generations. Because Daniel was right. Integrity cannot be bought. It can only be recognized. And when it's recognized, it opens doors that money alone could never open. Marcus stood on his balcony that night 7 years after the briefcase, and he understood something profound. The 1 million naira he returned was nothing compared to what he gained. He gained a life built on truth. A family built on honor. A future built on a foundation that could never crumble. And that was worth more than all the money in the world. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?